Welcome in, Fantasy Play Callers.
Hey guys, how's it going?
What's going on, guys?
We have an awesome show for you guys today. This is going to be a little bit of a shorter episode because we're also going to do a mock draft tonight. Check that out. It's going to be a separate video that we will link to this one below, so check that out down there. But in the meantime, we've got some news, we've got some updates, and we have our playoff predictions, which are...
For what they're worth.
Absolutely.
We know. We have looked into our crystal balls, and we already know what's going to happen, so, put everything on whatever we tell you, except for don't actually.
Listen, if half of our brackets are correct, a good portion of the United States is going to be on fire consecutively from January until the middle of February.
That's great.
So,
This is
life altering.
Yeah, 100%. There's going to be some exciting predictions I think in here today. We're going to talk about what we think, what we want to happen, what we think might really happen, and we'll talk a little bit about some playoff implications of this last week as well as we kind of touch on a couple teams here. But let's get into the news. Eli, I know you were going to kick us off.
Yeah, I just wanted to cover a couple things through the end of the season here, some things that recently just happened, especially kind of deals with kind of the teams and going into next year. Cliff Kingsbury did get fired. It came out, so he is officially done as the Arizona head coach. I thought it was very interesting. They said, or the owner came out and said that Kyler Murray will be involved in picking the next head coach as well. So
that's because Kyler Murray is a bit of a prima donna.
I was going to use that exact word. Like prima donna is it is the perfect word for Kyler Murray.
He laid on his back in the locker room and pitched a 10%.
He does look like an angry toddler. We're the same height. I hate to say that, but he does look like an angry toddler.
You're more properly proportioned than he is. And I've seen you.
I also don't run a 4.2.
Yeah. No, Kyler Murray, a heck of a player, and who knows, maybe a great guy, but it does seem as though he's going to throw his weight around in that locker room and throw fits. And
we don't have to spend too much time, but I don't think it's a very wanted job. J.J. Watt's retiring.
I don't think so either.
I think Hopkins is going to want out.
I would give DeAndre Hopkins another year, and if it doesn't,
I think he might be out there.
He's probably done.
I think he may be out this offseason potentially.
Yeah, and it's not one of these teams that have been bad in the past have really accumulated picks over these last few years, and you're seeing them kind of do the full rebuild. Arizona didn't go that route.
Ooh.
And I do think that they've kind of suffered or are in this in-betweener stage where they're just good enough to not get a top pick, but they're not good enough to do anything.
Nope.
So I do think it's a really tough place to go, especially losing key veterans and J.J. Watt retiring after that. Yeah. I think if I had to guess, due to that heart stoppage and him having a kid, I don't blame you one bit, J.J.
Yeah.
That's absolutely nuts.
He also has already earned enough of a legacy. Like, the guy is going to go down as one of the greatest defensive players of all time. Like, he's already done. He's done his work in the trenches. I don't blame him.
So go be a dad. Relax on that retirement money. Good for him.
That 4-year span in there, he was the best ever. From I think it was 2014 to 2018, he was one of the best
unstoppable
ever. So just that alone, he'd make the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm. We were talking about an interior defensive lineman who won Defensive Player of the Year multiple years in a row.
Yes.
That tells you everything you need to know about J.J. Watt. And we haven't actually spoke, guys, because we talked about the heart stop for J.J. Watt. I just want to mention real quick the DeMar Hamilton situation. Obviously, we were praying for you, DeMar, when that stuff happened, and wish you nothing but the best. And
Absolutely. Good news, he is headed home now from Cincinnati, where he's in the hospital. He's headed back home, and he's active. He's been on social media, so that's a really good sign. Obviously, still probably some recovery to go, but he's looking good, looking better.
From my understanding, it is a miraculous recovery.
Yeah,
it is. I think it has attributes to the fact that he's young. I mean, the dude's in peak physical condition.
Absolutely.
But really, man, just how lucky is somebody like that to have experienced something like that, and he's already heading home, and it just.
Yeah.
It makes you feel good about the amount of support that he's received from all across the NFL. It just shows you that people care.
Yeah, and I love that people came together instead of turning this into even the political parties and stuff kind of came together and were just let's just all root for a guy who had something horrible happen to him. Mm-hmm. Let's all just be on the side of let's hope good things happen to him and his family, which is it's a feel-good story now. It was scary at the time.
It was.
So it was very scary. Yep, absolutely.
Do we talk about Lovie Smith?
Yeah, so Lovie Smith, he
gave
basically...
big old middle finger to the Houston
Texans. They came into the week and basically needed to lose the game to get the number one pick. he said, no thank you, and won the game, and they lost the number 1 pick against the Indianapolis Colts, and now he is now fired and looking for a job. So
do you think this makes him harder to hire or less hard to hire?
No.
Like,
See,
genuinely.
He is a Chicago Bear at heart. And he will always be a Chicago Bear at heart. And it is no coincidence that first overall pick is now going to the Chicago Bears.
Well, you think is a shout out to his old team?
It was a power move. I think he's trying to get a job back with the Chicago Bears. I think, they have a lot of good potential talent, and they're on it. He might be trying to hedge his bet so he can go back to Chicago, man.
I don't even know if he's.
I'm totally
I know it's hilarious, but his record as a coach is not that great, actually, as a head coach. Like, for the Chicago Bears, he took him to the Super Bowl that one time to win the defense. Yep. But his overall record's not that good. I don't. Well, he'll get some defensive coordinator work, but I don't think he's going to get a head coach.
That's what I was going to say. I do think that he's a good coordinator, but right now you're a defensive head coach, and your defense had the worst rushing defense in the NFL, correct? Which is sort of defense 101. And granted, they are lacking in players over there in Houston as well, but still,
they're having a lot of hard problems, especially with the receiver issues that they've been having this year, and who's their quarterback going to be? Davis Mills is very likely on his way out, so they're really in a place where they have to either just kind of suffer through the hard times or they have to go into a rebuild, and I don't know that they have the draft picks for it.
Well, they have 3 first-rounders, I believe.
Do they really?
Yeah. Yeah, they have at least 2.
That's right. They acquired a couple from J.J. Watt and DeAndre Hopkins, didn't they?
Yeah. Well, and then the Deshaun Watson trade.
That's right. I forgot about that.
So they have at least 2, and they might have a 3rd.
Okay. So they might be on the up and up.
Yeah. So they did kind of go the full rebuild route, which if you're gonna do it big.
I will say one thing about Lovie Smith is the beard is awesome.
That is a great beard.
The beard is awesome.
That is awesome.
Fantastic beard. All right, well, should we get into some of our playoff predictions?
One more thing, and I think this is pretty fantasy relevant, is Aaron Rodgers is making some allusions that he's not going to be returning to the gridiron after this year. I think he was talking to Jamal Williams, and I think he was Jamal Williams.
I forget who it was, but somebody on the other team.
Yeah, the Lions.
Detroit, and he asked to do a jersey swap with them. He said, I might need to hang on to this one, the jersey. So, I mean, that could be an indication either he's retiring or that could be an indication where he's done as a Packer. Or it could be either one.
I think he's done as a Packer.
What does his contract look like?
He signed an extension.
I want to say that he signed an extension 2 years ago.
He might retire.
So he has 1 more year.
He has 1 more year?
I think he has 1 more year.
Yeah, you're right. It was like a 2-year deal. It was a 3-year deal, but it really was a 2-year deal type of thing.
Where all the money was guaranteed up front.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that this year he doesn't really gain anything if he plays, or there's no real incentive. I mean, there's probably an incentive, but there's really nothing for him at the end of this.
He might retire.
How old is he? 36?
He's 36. He's made a crap ton of money. He has a Super Bowl.
Well, think of what network is not going to be going after Aaron Rodgers to get him to come commentate. I don't know. I think he might try to move into a team that maybe has some playoff potential.
Yeah.
I don't really know. I think one area that Aaron Rodgers probably feels insecure about, if he feels insecure about anything, is the amount of rings that he has for the amount of accolades that he has to his name. You know?
That's true.
So I wouldn't be surprised if he really tries to say, kind of like Phillip Rivers, kind of like Brett Favre, and says, 1 more year, let's try to get that ring, and if not, I'm just going to be done.
Sure.
So
yeah, that's true.
No, 100%. I completely agree.
It was funny. I mean, not funny. I
thought it was funny.
Well, they got eliminated by the Detroit Lions on Sunday night, and he did have some videos that came out before, kind of tooting his horn about, they are 500. They're not above 500. They had these little slates, and
they showed him.
And they came in and actually.
Dan Campbell said this is a new Detroit Lions. This is the Lions that you've never seen before.
And the Lions went 9-8. I know they didn't make the playoffs, but if you're a Lions fan, you got to be feeling good about a young team going 9-8. You really should.
A number 2 in their division.
Yeah.
Number 2 in their division, where the Packers have ran rampant for years on them. Yeah. It is a different generation of NFL now.
Yep, and the Vikings are a very good team. I mean, they lost out, to them, which is that's a very good team. All right, well, we better get going on these playoff predictions. So let me ask you this: who do we think has the wildest predictions? We've not seen each other's or heard each other's yet, so.
I'm willing to bet that I do.
You probably do.
I'm willing to bet that I do.
Mine's probably more on the line with chalk, I would say.
Okay. Well, let's start with Dakota's then. Let's kick this thing off with a bang. Dakota, what do you got for us as far as the?
Once you start on the
prediction.
left side.
Do you guys want to just do like what we have for NFC and then AFC, or do we want me to?
Let's do it per. You want to do per round?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go through each game and each.
Okay. Yeah. I like that.
You want me
that.
to go first?
Let's start off with Jacksonville.
Okay.
Number 4 Jacksonville, LA, and then number 5 LA Chargers.
I have Jacksonville.
Number 4 Jacksonville.
I think Jacksonville is dangerous. I think the Chargers showed, they really don't have any major injuries except for Mike Williams, who that's a pretty significant injury rolling into the playoffs.
Yep.
I think that the Chargers kind of showed their ass, for lack of a better word, against the Broncos. They really had a game where they could have gone in and lost, or gone in and won, and they just didn't.
Yeah.
Like Justin Herbert is not a closer.
Yeah, there are definitely some holes in that team.
Yeah.
So I completely understand, and I mean they still have a lot of talent on the top end.
They do.
They do, and they have for a long time.
But Jacksonville's shifty.
Yeah.
And Trevor Lawrence is scary.
Yeah, no, I do think Doug Peterson is a really good head coach as well, and they've really shown that they have a lot of weapons, and he knows how to use weapons and get the most out of his guys. I went Jacksonville as well.
Good. Okay.
By the way, over the Chargers.
So I went Chargers, but I really like their defense. I like their defensive pressure that they're able to generate, and then I know Mike Williams is hurt, which that does affect it a little bit, but their offensive talent is really high, and so I think they can keep up with Jacksonville. And Jacksonville's defense is mediocre to decent, so I think they could score a lot of points on them and outscore them.
I will say there's only, before we move on, there's one thing which you brought up, which I don't think a lot of people really think about. It is Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson is the guy who took Eagles who had Nick Foles, and everybody's like, who the hell is Nick Foles? And he rolled on the rest of the NFL and got him a Super Bowl. I mean, Doug Peterson is no slouch to going in with an underrated team into the playoffs and doing great things with them.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So,
no, I completely agree. He has been there before. I mean, the only problem for Jacksonville, I think, honestly, after this is that if you win against the Chargers, you are up against Buffalo or
David and Goliath,
Kansas City or Cincinnati, or one of these, and
right. It should be irrelevant who wins this game, is what we're trying to say.
Yeah, whoever wins this game is probably going to end up, in my opinion, at least in a wood chipper.
I think we're all in agreement.
Let's go to the next game then. Since number 3 Cincinnati, number 6 Baltimore. What do you got?
Cincinnati, man. I think Baltimore's going through some things. I think we're all in agreement on this one. Like, I really, in good faith, can't throw Baltimore.
Cincinnati, just for the fact that Lamar's been hurt for the last 4 or 5 weeks. He is questionable to play. He might not even play this playoff game.
I don't think he's playing.
And they're just not very. They don't have a lot of offensive talent outside of Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson himself. I mean,
their running back room is a mess. Their wide
J.K.
receivers
Dobbins
have no idea what are going on.
Dobbins has been decent since he's been back, but it's been on and off.
It hasn't been this. It just hasn't been the same.
No, and it does take a while to get back from that injury. It famously takes a long time to get back from that particular injury as well. And the other thing, too, is that, in my opinion, Joe Burrow, every time we've seen him in big games, he has made magic happen as well. So the other thing on this is, you have maybe an injured Lamar, if no Lamar, versus a Joe Burrow who's at full strength and with a better team than he had and took all the way to the Super Bowl last year.
Yep.
It's just, so that's where I'm at.
Relatively no changes to their roster.
Yep.
Not a lot of injuries. I think their guard left the game early with an injury this week. And then the whole T. Higgins thing, but he was back in the game relatively soon after that. But, their defense at the end of the year, every year, tends to look pretty good. It's not very good at the beginning of the year, maybe not the mid-year, but towards the last few games, they're really good at closing out the season. So I think that's really a big asset that they have that people don't talk about a lot.
Caused 4 turnovers last week.
Yeah.
They did.
That's huge.
Massive.
This should be a really easy one, I think, for between all of us. But number 2 Buffalo and number 7 Miami.
Miami? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I was on to
anybody have Miami?
No, man. They're too inconsistent. I think the whole quarterback problem is going on, and then their defense just can't.
Well, they were 1-8 in the back in the last 9 games.
Yeah.
Is that what they were?
I want to say they're on a 6-loss streak.
Yeah, 6.
Maybe 1-6.
Yeah.
No, you're right. It's 1-8.
Okay.
But it's a 6-loss streak as of right now. It's just. They just can't put it together.
Yeah, Tua, and I haven't heard any updates on Tua. I don't know if he's playing or not. Even if he is playing, just go against that Buffalo defense.
Yeah.
That is really good.
Who had-
and you're in Buffalo too,
Yep.
and so when you deal with the weather and going from Miami, I mean,
They had
just
plenty of
tough
time to
place
prep
to
from
play.
the last game that they had. Like, they know, like, it's not like the Miami.
And there's a little bit of like the emotional piece of it too, coming back from that
Yeah.
Hamlin game. I know obviously it's another game after that, but that adds a little bit too. I think Buffalo runs away with this.
I think so too. I think it's going to be just an absolute steal.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I do think they absolutely roll them. I agree.
Um,
So let's go to the other side,
Yes.
because we'll do kind of the...
And before we move on, Kansas City obviously moves on. They had the bye, so they would play whoever we had against the Jacksonville
Yep.
or the lowest seed.
The lowest seed available,
Yes.
but we all agreed that Buffalo and Cincinnati would go through, which means they'll play Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Which
In all of our brackets. But that could
Yeah.
be different if Baltimore or if Miami won, if you're just kind of tracking this at home.
Yep.
Tampa Bay versus Dallas is the first game on the schedule here.
This is a tough one, I think, for a lot of us.
I got playoff magic Tom Brady, dude. And also, Dak Prescott looks like garbage.
I went back and forth on this one a lot.
I did too.
But I do think that offensive line of Tampa looks bad.
They do.
And if there is a strength in this Cowboys team, it is that pass rush.
I know.
So I ended up going Dallas,
I did
but
too.
I completely understand
So
Tom Brady
what I'll
magic.
say, I think this will be one of the best games
I agree.
of the first round.
Me
So I
too.
think this is one to really watch. Obviously, the Tom Brady is going to come back, is going to retire, and then you're going against a really good Dallas defense. I think they're really going to hang their hat on the defense and the running backs. I talked about this like 4 or 5 weeks ago. I went through oh my gosh, the quarterback.
Oh, yeah, Dak Prescott.
Dak Prescott's interception streaks where he's had like average like 1.5 interceptions for the last 10 weeks or something like that.
He's gone up to the most interceptions.
And he threw 2 interceptions last week. So
and he's missed a decent bit of games.
No, and that is the reason why I was sitting here going, like, if it's Dak versus Tom, I'll take Tom as bad as he's been this year. I actually will still take Tom this year. But I don't think, in my opinion, I don't think that'll be the case. I think that this Dallas defense is significantly better than this Tampa defense.
Yes.
So I hedged Dallas, but if it ends up Tom Brady versus Dak Prescott this game, which Dak could easily make happen with a couple picks at bad times.
He could.
Then I could really see
I can see it
Tampa
going,
Bay
I can see it
winning
going the
this
other way.
game.
I would not bet this with confidence. That's all I'm going to say.
Yes.
I'm 100% with you. However, the real thing that stole it for me is this is probably the last time that we will see Tom Brady on the gridiron.
Yeah.
And I think that has a pretty significant psychological impact on this Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think they know that this is probably one of the last times in the next few years that they're going to really get a chance to be here.
Yeah. Well, think about Mike Evans and Leonard Fournette. Those guys are veterans, and they know this will be their last time playing with a Hall of Fame quarterback. There is a little X factor there. I completely agree, too.
I think that's, for me, that's really, I think it's a close one. Like you were saying, I wouldn't bet on this one, but I think that gives them the edge. Rolling into Minnesota and the Giants.
This is the other one that I thought was going to be really close.
I went back and forth on this one.
I'm very interested to hear both of your guys' sides.
I went with Minnesota on this, which I think most of us probably did.
So I went with
Oh,
Minnesota.
okay.
I believe you went with the Giants.
I did go with the Giants.
I totally get it.
I
Totally get it.
I went back and forth with this one.
In my opinion, and just to kind of give the counter view, because I think you guys will have a lot of really good points in Minnesota, because I was actually leaning Minnesota initially, but I do think that the Giants have the capacity to take this and make this an ugly game.
They do.
And Minnesota, with their defense being as bad as it is, doesn't always do great in ugly games. Look at what happened with Dallas.
Yep.
I mean, that was, like, as soon as it got ugly...
That was the ugliest game.
Right? Their offensive line, their defense, those battles in the trenches, they actually don't do great there.
No.
They're actually more built for, let's air it out to Justin Jefferson, let's get Dalvin Cook in space, let's do,
Who by the way, left the game early this week.
Yeah,
So,
he came back in.
Did he come back? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, for me, though, that's a little bit of a red flag when it comes to Dalvin Cook. I know they have Alexander Madison, but at the end of the day, like, for me, I totally get where you're coming from for this New York Giants team, because Minnesota is not known for making clean getaways in these tight matches. And I really think that the Giants, like you said, excel in these games where they probably shouldn't.
Yeah, where things get dirty. I do think that the Giants like to be this dirty, mean team. And I do think in playoff football, the rest a little bit more go.
100%.
And things get a little dirtier. So if it's close, I kind of side with the better defense a lot because I do think it really matters.
And
but
Danny Dimes is a weird dude. He does some weird things, and that kind of, for me, is kind of like, well, if he does these weird things, he's going to get away with it. The Minnesota defense is terrible. They're going to allow it to happen. Yeah. And that really is something that might throw for the Giants. So I could see either one.
He is like the Nicolas Cage of football. Like
he is.
Is he good or is he bad? Because there's so much bad on tape. But there's also there is some really good stuff on tape.
There's some good stuff. It's like almost like that's like the New York Giants thing. Is their quarterbacks are the Nicolas Cage of football. You're like, man, are they going to have an Oscar-winning film, or are they just going to be the Golden Raspberry this year? You never know,
right?
You never know.
Like, is he just screaming at the camera, or is he doing amazing acting?
Yeah,
we're not even sure at this point.
No idea. And then you get to the final. You get to the Super Bowl, and you're like, where did the Giants come from? Why is it the Giants versus Buffalo? Like, doesn't make any sense to me.
That could happen. But I don't have that happening.
Yeah.
And then for this San Francisco-Seattle game.
Okay, so this is where we're going to get weird. I have Seattle. Okay. And the reason why I have Seattle is because Seattle was ranked, 22 to 25 was their average preseason rank entering this year. Mm-hmm. They have somehow skated through and made it to the playoffs. Somehow. With a winning record. We never thought that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Geno Smith set the franchise quarterback passing yards record this year. Granted, there's 18 games now. It's a little different. They're playing 17 games now.
But still.
But that's still something. A dude who was a backup, and they were like, man, we have Geno Smith and Drew Lock. Like, what are we going to do? Geno Smith is here to leave his mark on football while he can. And I really think that the team resonates with that, and for some reason they're all like, dude, we're going to make this happen. And I think that
they've been playing really well.
They have, and we know the 49ers better than any other team in the NFL.
That's true.
That's true, and this is a division game, and these division playoff games can end up being weird. That being said,
it's 1-1 right now.
I'll take your Geno Smith, and I will counter you with one Brock Purdy.
I think
because here's what I'm going to say. Man. Brock he's been really good.
Really good.
I do think the San Francisco team is kind of doing in a similar way, rallying around him. And to be honest, I think the San Francisco defense once again is just really
good. They're amazing, but we're 1-1 versus them right now.
No, 100%.
We're 1-1.
And this is one of those things where at least in the way I think about it, if San Fran gets beat, it'll probably be in the first round. I kind of think the same thing about Cincinnati. But if they don't get beat by the people in their own division, I do think that they're going to maybe go on a bit of a run, not to give my bracket away.
No, I have San Francisco too. I think Seattle's a great story. I think they have really good rookies, especially on the defensive side. They have made some great picks, and then I think Geno Smith's been playing out. He had a career year. He can't say anything else. Get out of his mind, and I think he'll be a good quarterback going into next year too, with the talent that he has, and
if we don't replace him,
wide receivers are going to be back. I have a hard time. I think they will replace him.
I don't think that they should, because the way that he's played has really shown that he deserves to be the starter. I think it's Geno Smith's time.
I'll put it this way too:
but Pete Carroll's weird.
If they beat San Fran, there's no way you replace him. If he goes and wins this game, cannot replace him.
It is in San Fran too. But I think with Brock Purdy, how well he's been playing. I was trying to find there was a stat that came up, but since he started, he's first in a lot of different categories as far as touchdowns and passer rating. And
you're not talking backup good. He's just been
really
good.
And I think a lot. I think it's a system with a combination of the talent that he has around him, which is just out of this world. And
it's also
can go
Christian McCaffrey and the
Christian McCaffrey, Tebow, George Kittle,
Brandon Ayuk,
all these talented people, and they have a good offensive line too. And their defense is really good. It's just going to be a hard out.
So they have a genius of a coach. The way that I looked at this is, if there's going to be an upset, it's going to be this game.
I agree. Really I think the reason why they would be able to upset, like you said, they play each other twice in a year. So if anybody's going to do it, it would be Seattle. But I do think, just based off of the talent of the team, I think San Francisco would take it.
Okay. Let's get on to who Kansas City's going to play in their first game. But that being said,
It'll be different for you.
It'd be different for us. So,
okay.
I've got Kansas City versus Jacksonville.
I also have Kansas City versus
so
Jacksonville.
So do you. So,
yep.
I have Kansas City in that game.
Obviously.
Yeah, I think that we're both in agreement
home.
on that. At home.
At home.
The number one
their
seed.
team is 100% healthy. Like
I do think that Doug Peterson magic might be able to happen if he can do something crazy, which he has shown some ability to do before. But I do think Kansas City is a much better team than Jacksonville probably is.
I think the big thing is that I don't think that the Jacksonville defense can overcome Pat Mahomes. Pat Mahomes at this point is
Nobody
just kind
can
of
overcome Pat
yeah,
Mahomes.
he's just messing around, dude. Like it doesn't even look like he's having fun at this point. You know.
And they have a lot of talent too, like as far as on their offense. I mean, Juju has played well this year.
Yep.
They have Tony, although he's killed fantasy. He's super talented. He's
been
really
good for the last
fast, and he's a
few
great
weeks.
gadget player.
He's going to be what Odell was last year, is that he didn't do anything for your fantasy team, but he mattered for the team in the playoffs, which is...
Yep.
Jarek McKinnon.
They have three
McKinnon's
weird...
playing out of his mind.
Well, they have Jarek
These
McKinnon,
last,
Ronald
like, 6
Jones
weeks.
is getting thrown into the mix, and Isaiah Pacheco. Like it is a
Isaiah
roulette
Pacheco's
of
a
everything.
good running back too, and he's really fast. He's the more the pounder of the two, but that combination, I think they're really hard to beat. So I have
agree.
the Chargers playing them, but I have Kansas City advancing.
So it's irrelevant for either one
Yeah,
of us.
so,
when we look
and then we kind of said at the beginning, now this game, the next one up, we all were in agreement with who made it this game. We all have Cincinnati, we all we all have Buffalo.
Yes.
Right? That being said, I don't know if we're all going to have the same answer coming out of this one, because this to me is one of the biggest playoff games.
It would be.
I agree. It is
This is gonna be really
the
fun.
rematch that they never got.
Yes. And there's been a lot of that stuff on the line as well. I have Cincy coming out ahead. What do you guys have here?
I have Buffalo.
So do I. Buffalo's my preseason pick, and I just think that, man, Josh Allen's hard to beat. So I know Joe Burrow is too, but Josh Allen's been in this position now for 3 to 4 years, and I think it's just his time based off of the progression he's made.
I will say Josh Allen, I think he feels like he has a chip on his shoulder because I feel like he feels like he got robbed.
Multiple times.
Multiple times.
Yes.
And I think for me, he wants Pat Mahomes because he wants to come back and he get that what happened last year, what was taken from him. I, however, have a slightly different reasoning for why I think that they're going to win, and that is because I think there are just too many weapons on that offense that Josh Allen can just put it wherever he wants to put it, and it's going to make something happen. I mean, they have Devin Singletary's been taking a little bit of a backseat to James Cook and Naheem Hines. Naheem Hines has been playing out of his mind for the last 2 weeks.
He's just great in open space.
He is.
You get him the ball in open space.
So
He's
fast.
really good.
So fast.
I mean,
Dawson Knox is finding his tempo.
He's healthy now,
they still have Stephon Diggs, obviously.
We have Isaiah McKenzie. We have Stephon Diggs, obviously, and then we have I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on it. Gabe Davis.
Yeah. No, who also Gabe Davis last year went off in the playoffs as well. So he's kind of a big gamer guy to kind of watch out for as far as playoffs if you play DFS or anything like that. That being said, Cincinnati made it to the Super Bowl last year. They made magic happen, and every time we've seen Joe Burrow in a situation where Joe Burrow needs to do something big to win the game, to get his team into the playoffs, or to get them to the next step, he is cool as a cucumber, and he makes the right call, and he does everything perfectly. And I can't bet against it, so I went Cincy. I'm all in on smoking cool Joe Burrow. I am. I really am. But I understand it. Buffalo's definitely going to be the favorite in that game. But I do think that Cincinnati could pull one out here.
I like it. I get it. I don't know. I don't know that the blatant issues that they've had this year were things that I was not expecting them to really have going into this year.
Well, the offensive line was still terrible to start the year.
Yes.
But part of that was also that you brought in 3 new players into your offensive line, and then you expected them all to pick up blitzes as a team and whatever else. That takes time.
Oh, yeah.
And they fixed a lot of that towards the end of the year. At least it looks like they have at this point. So I
think that Buffalo is just it's their time and they've been waiting. Fun fact, I don't know how many people know this. They actually had 4 years in a row where they were in the Super Bowl and they got snubbed.
That's the best stat.
4 years.
Hilarious. Can you
was
imagine
it 4
being a
or 5?
Bills fan?
It's 4.
Was it 4?
I think it was 4.
It was, but
can you imagine
4 years in a row and getting snubbed? Like Buffalo has been waiting for their time for years, and it's their time.
Yeah, no, I get that. I understand all that, and I have Cincy.
Yeah, you know what? That's to each their own.
But yeah.
Going to the other side of the board.
Yes.
So we have
Philly. And who are they playing for you guys? And remember, they play the lowest seed.
I have them playing Seattle.
Yep.
I believe. Yeah. So I may have messed up on my bracket, but I have them playing Seattle.
No, that's correct.
I don't think it's going to be relevant. I think that Philly is unovercomable for Seattle. I just don't think that there's really anything that they're going to be able to do. I think it's irrelevant. Jalen Hurts is back. Their defense looks exactly the same how it was at the beginning of the year. Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert, and A.J. Brown just look amazing. And their running backs are they are the complete team.
Yeah. No, I do agree that I think that Philly is a really good team. I have them playing the Giants. I have them beating the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
I have them playing Dallas, which I think will be a very interesting, good game, in division game. So, but I do have them Philadelphia overcoming Dallas because I completely agree with everything Dakota said. I think they're probably one of the most complete teams with their defense and offense and how well they've looked all year and just the amount of pressure they can put on defense. And then they have the great cornerbacks to back it up too. So
they just click It's very rare that you see NFL teams really mesh this well, and I think they do a great job of it. With that being said, I think we all picked Minnesota except for Ethan.
Yep. Yes, which is why they're playing the Giants.
So you have Dallas and San Fran.
Yes.
I have Minnesota and Tampa Bay.
Yep, I have Minnesota and San Fran.
Yeah. So this is going to be interesting. This is going to be where it gets interesting.
Yeah, so I have San Fran versus Dallas, and because of the reasons we talked about earlier with Dallas and their problems, San Fran is just the more complete team.
Okay.
Yep.
In my opinion, they have a lot more weapons, so I went San Fran.
Yeah, so I have them playing Minnesota, and I think Minnesota barely gets by New York Giants in this scenario. I don't think they have the ability to get past San Fran. Just the defense and the complete team, and then Kirk Cousins will probably pull a Kirk Cousins prime game.
100%. He's going to do it. If he doesn't do it against the Giants.
If Minnesota doesn't lose on a missed field goal, because they do have a tendency to do
sorry,
that as well.
Sorry, lots of our friends who are Vikings fans. It's just these are facts.
When you're from the Midwest, you're either a Vikings fan or you know history, and then you decided not to be a Vikings fan. So
I have Tampa Bay versus Minnesota. Oddly enough, picked Minnesota because I think that Tampa Bay just isn't going to be able to do what they did against Dallas against Minnesota, and I think that Minnesota's going to run away with it.
I mean, that would definitely be the best case scenario. As a matter of fact, as a Minnesota fan, you should really be rooting for Seattle because if they beat San Fran, you no longer run into the wood chipper that is San Fran, and instead you will be playing either the Dallas Cowboys for a revenge match or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Right. So.
I think this is where our brackets get weird.
Yeah, this is where everyone's going to have a different opinion. Because I do really think that,
with the exception of me and Eli.
Oh, okay. Well, you two started.
We'll start on the AFC Championship game, so...
I have KC versus Buffalo.
Yep.
And I have Buffalo winning. Yeah. And I think you do, too.
Yeah, I have KC versus Buffalo, and I have Buffalo winning, too. This will be at a neutral field, too, by the way, if this happens.
Which we were talking at dinner the other night, and we couldn't figure out what would be.
Where were they? I don't know where they played. They said based off that game getting canceled, and Buffalo not being able to play out that game, since they have the same winning percentage, Buffalo and Kansas City both won last week, that they'll play on a neutral site.
Yeah, so I think that's an interesting thing, but it's going to kind of put it to a wash. But I think Buffalo has been preparing for this game the entire season, and I think that if anybody's going to give the Chiefs a run for their money and stop the juggernaut, it's going to be Buffalo, man.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think I picked them preseason.
Yep.
And I just think that their defense is just... I think the offenses are very similar. I think Kansas City has an edge there, but their defense is a lot better than Kansas City.
Yes.
100%. No, it definitely is. I have Kansas City playing Cincinnati, because I had Cincinnati beating Buffalo, which is a completely different game.
Yep.
And then this Cincinnati-Kansas City game, in my opinion, is pure shootout.
Yeah.
100%.
This will be, if this does happen,
it's a really great game.
It will be playoff magic, because you're going to see Pat Mahomes versus Joe Burrow.
Oh, yeah.
Explosions
with all the weapons around both of them. But I do think Joe Burrow has better weapons.
Okay.
And I get the edge to Joe Burrow. I've got Cincinnati going on.
Interesting.
I think either way, Buffalo, Kansas City, or Cincinnati, Kansas City, they're both going to be shootouts.
I think they're the kryptonite.
Agreed.
Yeah, but I think Cincinnati would be a probably bigger shootout.
Even worse defense in the Cincinnati, Kansas City than the Buffalo. Yeah, I agree.
I think that what we're kind of beating around the bush at is that Buffalo and Cincinnati are the kryptonite that Kansas City is looking at.
I agree with
just
you.
because they can shoot with them.
The three that really stand out would be Cincinnati, Buffalo, and Kansas City.
Yes.
I would have to agree with that for sure. I think we all agree that they're the cream of the crop.
Agreed.
Maybe somebody throws a wrench in it, but until they prove us otherwise, they're just the top.
Yeah, I do really think that, especially on this side of the bracket, like until somebody beats these guys, it's just so hard to pick against them.
And Miami and Baltimore are all injured with the quarterback, especially, and then LA just got a Mike Williams injury, and how can you trust Jacksonville past the first round?
Jacksonville.
Yeah, so it's like you got three reliable teams that you really can.
We're going to see some weird playoff magic in the first round. I think after that, it's going to go to the old favorites.
Yeah, I feel like that. So
going into the other side, to the NFC. We kind of differ, but I think we all arrived at a similar location.
Yeah, so I ended up with Philly versus San Fran, which Eli did as well.
And I ended up with Philly versus Minnesota.
Yeah, you got them to the championship game. Wow.
However, I do have Philly winning that game.
If it does end up that way, I would be willing to wager that Philly does win.
I'd put a lot of my money on that.
But no, I do think that's an entirely possible scenario, especially with that in-division San Francisco-Seattle game is really the big difference, is the big break.
It is.
And I think it's going to be a really interesting game to watch. I have San Fran, by the way, beating Philly, whereas you...
I have Philly beating San Fran.
Interesting.
They'll have the home field advantage. I think Brock Purdy going against that type of caliber of defense is going to be really hard. I know San Francisco's a really strong defense, but Jalen Hurts can beat you with his arm. He can beat you with his legs. So it really breaks down defense really well if you can kind of utilize both of those things. And by that time, I think he'll be healthy enough to do so.
And they have
not to mention A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith are both one-play guys. They can take a drive instantaneously.
That's why it's so scary with them, because they have these one-play guys, but they also have the possession wide receiver in like Dallas Goedert, and Devonta Smith does a little bit of that. But it takes one deep ball to A.J. Brown, and
they're running, and like we talked about earlier, like their running backs just know what to do. And so if Jalen Hurts isn't running the ball and coverage is too tight on the other side of the field, they're going to give it to their running backs. And Miles Sanders has shown that he can break through against good D lines. I think that it's something that they really just have all the weapons to make it work.
And as good as San Francisco is on offense, they don't have that super explosive over the top guy, I would say. Or Brock Purdy hasn't shown that that's the case. I mean, Ayuk can definitely go deeper, but Debo's around.
He's a home run hitter, but he's a home run hitter that usually gets the ball in his hands early and then goes from there.
Same with George Kittle. That's why they play the same type of game. So, and Chris McCaffrey is the same way. They all play that middle of the field, not middle of the field, but more the intermediate to middle range, where they don't have that real big deep threat. I would think so.
Yeah, no, I went San Francisco because as good as Philly is, I do feel like San Francisco has a little bit better weapons on offense. And I think their quarterback situation, Purdy versus Hurts, obviously.
Do they have better weapons on offense?
I do, actually.
You think San Fran has better weapons on offense than
well, because the biggest difference is Christian McCaffrey to Miles Sanders.
That is the biggest
difference. That is a chasm.
However,
so Debo Samuel is slightly below A.J. Brown.
I don't think slightly is.
George Kittle is above Dallas Goedert.
Not a lot.
And then Ayuk is, I think, very similar to Devonta Smith.
I think that how good.
To me, it comes down to the running back, and I just put McCaffrey.
I think A.J. Brown clowns on Debo this year. I don't think Debo has really delivered. I think
that's true.
He's had a much better season. Him and George Kittle, and George Kittle is getting the ball or Debo is getting the ball, it really takes one out of the equation for me. And I think you're right. Ayuk is. I think he's slightly worse than Devonta Smith. And then I agree with you on Christian McCaffrey, but just like.
The difference is
all they have.
I do think Philly has more top end, and obviously Brown is better than Debo, especially this year.
You got to consider the quarterback as far as talking offensive weapons, because Jalen Hurts' legs is another weapon that is mixed into.
Brock Purdy looked great, and I will say this: I think that Kyle Shanahan system is one that has always been super QB friendly, and Brock Purdy it seems like a very smart rookie who understands his role and knows what to do. And in that system, you can be a system quarterback and stand in there and know your role, and you're going to put up big numbers because you're going to throw the ball 5 yards to George Kittle, and he's going to take it for 20, and you take it to Deebo Samuel or Christian McCaffrey, and they can take it to the house. And that it helps a lot.
Yeah,
it does.
But it's going to be a good game. That is one heck of a game.
You're going to have to escape that pass rush. That would be the biggest thing of having a young quarterback with that type of pass rush on him that quickly.
I think that
it's almost like you would need one of the best offensive lines in the NFL.
I think that their D-line is going to eat
Which
them
they
alive.
do have.
Which they have. Philadelphia has probably the best defensive line in the NFL.
Yep.
Them and Dallas.
They're both really good.
Yes.
Really complete teams. When we talk about
Correct.
Kansas City and Buffalo and Cincinnati,
those are the cream of the crop, probably.
Yeah, those are great. But Philly and San Fran, to me, on this side, are really kind of in the same tier. I guess I put those five and then kind of a.
Yep, I agree.
Whatever else. So you almost need a kryptonite, like someone in division.
Yes.
Which I think is a really good point to take one of these guys down.
I think that's really the only thing that we have going for us in this. We're like Jacksonville. Like, we can make some first round magic happen simply because we're playing a divisional rival and we know them really well. But if we make it somehow to that first round, we're irrelevant. If we don't take them out, then they definitely can go on a run.
Well, and Pete Carroll has made playoff magic happen as well too.
He's shifty, dude. He is. I don't know what he does, but the man is shifty. But I think we're at the point where we're kind of similar.
Yeah. So, who made your Super Bowl, guys? Let's go back through to tell the fans.
Eli and I both have Buffalo and Philly.
Buffalo and Philly.
However, the outcome is different. Yours.
Yeah. So let's do your two first, and then we'll get into mine.
Okay. I have Buffalo winning.
Okay.
And I think the reason why is because I think Josh Allen is the kryptonite to the Eagles D-line. I think Josh Allen is kind of like Jalen Hurts, and he can do it all. He's also huge, and it helps that he can jump over a man, like a large man.
Yeah,
he really can.
He's got an accurate arm. He's powerful. I think he's what Jalen Hurts is to the San Fran's D-line.
Yeah.
I think it's a very similar matchup, and I think that they just have enough weapons on offense that he can just spread it around to whoever he wants to.
Yeah, I think this is a really close game for me. Like I went back and forth a lot. I think these two teams are definitely the top part of the top 4 or 5 that we talked about. And I think they're really that top tier. Both have really good defenses, great quarterbacks, great offenses. But I think Philadelphia has a little bit better defense, in my opinion, based off what they've shown with how they can get to the pass rusher and how their cornerbacks. And I just think based off of that and the way that they've been playing this year, I think they're going to take it.
Okay.
I actually root for probably Josh Allen a little bit, but I think that I'm just going to take it just based off the overall team.
I think it's very possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think all these situations are plausible. It's the playoffs. Nobody knows what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I have a completely different Super Bowl. Neither one of those teams made it on mine. I have Cincinnati versus San Fran.
I'm going to take a stab at who wins. I'm going to be willing to say that you think Kyle Shanahan is going to take it to the house on this one.
I went back and forth on this a lot, but I actually picked Cincinnati to win.
Did you really? Interesting.
I did.
That's unexpected of you.
I know. I do just think that there's something going on in Cincy behind this whole Joe Burrow thing.
Okay.
The fact that they were not even supposed to be in the picture last year, and he just happened to get them there, it reminded me that there's it reminded me of like greats. You know what I mean? Like there are just certain greats that if they're on your team, they might just take them to the next level, and they're dangerous no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that
apparently
Joe Burrow,
you think Brock Purdy's in the same breath as that.
I think Brock Purdy has an amazing complete team and a heck of an offensive coordinator.
We'll see how it goes next year.
I think that, but also this would be a great matchup because these are both Shanahan systems.
They are.
Between Zach Taylor and Kyle Shanahan. Which is also maybe a little bias that I have that they believe in kind of that type of run game, opening things up. And I do think in the playoffs, teams that can run the ball, play good defense, tend to win a lot.
Okay.
But yeah, so I've got Cincy and San Fran here, and I've got Cincy beating them. Even though I went back and forth on this a lot, and it would not surprise me at all, San Fran winning.
I will say this, overall, this is a very interesting playoff. Like, last year was tight, but I feel like there was some pretty good indicators on who we all thought were going to make it to this, to the Super Bowl and win, and it happened. I think this year, there's a lot of really good teams, and there's a lot of dogs that made it into this bracket.
Yeah.
And I really think that anything can happen this year.
No, I
with the
agree.
exception of Miami making it out of the first round.
And we are going to wrap this video up here in just a minute. But if you had to pick, before we go, one team that's going to come in here and has just the opportunity to really mess some things up and maybe make a run to the Super Bowl, who's not, we're in the top 3 rated. Okay, so it's got to be lower than 3
I already know who I'm going to pick.
on either side.
You already know who I'm going to pick.
Who are you going to pick?
I'm going to pick the Seattle Seahawks, dude. Everybody has countered. Everybody wrote Geno Smith. They didn't write him back. He ain't writing back, okay?
Yep.
I think that we've already passed expectations, and at this point, even if we get knocked out in the first round, everybody's like, at least we made it. You know, there's we have nothing to lose, man. We're going into a rebuilding year with a winning record and a playoff spot, and we know who our possibly next quarterback is going to be next year. We're in a great position, and if some weird things could happen, it's going to be us who's going to do it.
Yeah, you guys have had a weird season, and it would make perfect sense for you to cap it off with a weird playoff where you just go in and do better than everyone thought, because that's what you've done all year.
Do I think it's going to happen? Absolutely not.
Yeah, you're not betting on it.
No way, man.
But you're hopeful.
But crazier things have happened.
Eli, what do you think?
I would say Dallas for sure would be my pick, just based off of the defense, and they have offensive weapons, and I know we bag on Dak Prescott, but he is a good quarterback, has had a lot of turnover recently, but if you're able to run the ball, 2 really good running backs, and you have really good defense, you put yourself in position to win. So
his fate is in his own hands, is essentially what you're saying.
If he can limit the turnovers, I think they have put themselves in a really good position to make a run.
I think that's reasonable.
Oh, I completely agree. I'm going to go kind of a different thing here, and I'm actually going to go with the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I like that. That probably would have been my number 2.
Because I do think that coaching makes a bigger difference in the playoffs. You're game planning not for a season or for a philosophy, but for a game.
Yeah.
And the coaches really get in here. Doug Peterson has been here. He's done it before. Trevor Lawrence is playing great. They're playing great as a team right now. I think that Kansas City is a juggernaut to beat, and they've got a tough road. But if they get lucky and Miami or Baltimore wins, or if they get lucky and beat Kansas City, I mean, some magic could really happen from Jacksonville.
Crazier things have happened.
They're kind of who I'm keeping my eye on. Yeah. But that's going to do it for our playoff breakdown. We've already gone too long, if we're being honest. Yeah, but we really appreciate you guys, enjoying the podcast here. We're going to have some more content out for you here in a little bit.
Yep.
Look for our yearly end of the year draft that we're going to do, where we go back through and draft players based off of our memories and see how they did, and then we'll see who has the best draft there. It's kind of a fun little exercise that you can do as well with your friends.
We also have some very aggressive off-season stuff coming up. We're gonna we missed out a little bit last year on the preseason and the off-season free agency, everything like that. We're gonna capitalize it on this year. I think we all had a pretty good understanding that this is something that we're gonna go towards aggressively.
Yeah, absolutely. We are going to be doing content all throughout the year, so like and subscribe below. You're going to get some great things. We're going to do free agency breakdowns when that happens, coaching carousel.
Yes.
We're going to do dynasty rookies and kind of go through that thing when that starts happening. And we're going to talk about the playoffs more because they're happening, and it's a good time.
We just love football.
We just love football. All things football here at the Fantasy Play Callers. Yep. Like and subscribe down below.
See you guys.
Thanks.
Dakota, will you get that?
What do you want me to get?
Just hit that red button.
Okay.
Off to the right.
I need to go. This one?
Yeah, no, you gotta hit the red button with the mouse, though.
Oh, I gotta hit the red button with the mouse.